Behold, my glorious supporter Zip has asked me to make early lunch for Konzu. Let's take a look at some of the rules. So we have to make it something actually edible. Basically anything can count as being edible, but we can't make the, quote, origin equivalent of a ham sandwich. So yeah, I got you covered. Today's dish will be, of course, what else would it be? The Mapriko chutney sauce for some nice salty tower meat. Let's give some background for this dish and then discuss the preparation method. Well, the tower meat, of course, the source of food for the Ostron population. You can see when you go to Cetus that there's an Orcan tower, and it appears that it's fallen and they're sort of sawing off meat off of it. I don't know why that's a thing, but there's meat growing on it, and they saw it off and they appear to be eating it and trading it with each other, and I don't know. Anyway, tower meat. That's what we're eating. So steak, I guess. And then what do you put on steak? Put salt and pepper on steak. Puh. Ridiculous. Also, the tower is in the water, so odds on it could be salty water. I'm going to assume this meat is already salted, probably to a rather disgusting extent. The same way that if you caught a fresh fish, you don't need as much salt because it's got some on there. So, of course you want to season it some. But yeah, the meat was in possibly salt water. Let's just say no salt. And pepper is just too primitive for this future universe diet. No, we will be making Mapriko chutney. Chutney is a sort of fruit condiment, compote thing, usually made with some kind of funky tropical fruit, pineapple, mango chutney, think of it a little bit like a vegetable sauce, or like tomatoes are fruits, but culinarily vegetables, like tomato sauce, but with a tropical fruit as the thing, usually has chunks of the fruit in it. Yes, it will go deliciously with that tower meat. And I'm sick of Konzu giving me 1 Mapriko as a reward for doing a bounty or something, or like 5 Mapriko. You hit a tree as you're bullet jumping around with the hitbox of your bullet jump, and without even acknowledging the existence of the tree, you get 5 Mapriko. Giving me 1 Mapriko is an insultingly small reward. Anyway, rant over. We're making lunch for Konzu, and of course we want it to be good, right? Mapriko chutney sauce for some nice salty tower meat. Now, here's the thing. That's all well and good. We can take our Maprikos, fresh from bullet jumped trees in Plains of Eidolon, grind them up with our superhuman Warframe strength, and employ perhaps an ember to toast the tower meat. Give it a nice char on the outside before simply taking it to a hot planet and leaving it outside for a little bit to thoroughly cook the inside. Could we even possibly reverse sear the meat by getting it on Earth, taking it to, say, Mercury, leaving it just outside, holding it up like an offering to the gods, because of course Konzu deserves only the best, and waiting for it to thoroughly cook to an internal temperature suitable, then using our ember or some such warframe to thoroughly sear the outside of the meat, using the reverse sear method, popularized in today times rather than all the way in the future. Hopefully they still cook meat the optimal way. But here's the thing. We can cook our meat that way. That's our preparation method, but that is not enough. We need spices. Yes, that's right. And to find those spices, it occurred to me that we could go to the Helminth feeding list, this thing. So during Tenno Live 2020, they showed us this page, which is the new feeding system for the Helminth Chrysalis system, which lets you give other Warframes Warframe powers. You need to feed your Helminth, and you can feed it a variety of things. And they were categorized into minerals, I don't know, biotics. I don't know what all the categories were, but a bunch of different categories. And one of them is pheromones. Obviously, this is the same thing as spices. I mean, just look at these. Neurodes, like that's a peppercorn. That's just a straight up black peppercorn. That is a black peppercorn. Do your black peppercorns not look like that? Mine look like that. Plastids, like again, just the different like Szechuan peppercorn shells. That's basically what that is, or maybe mutagen samples are that. Anyway, these are obviously spices, so we'll mix in a healthy dose of some fresh cracked black pepper. This even drops on Earth, which is an even better fit. There's that culinary theory that I actually normally dislike, where if ingredients come from the same place, maybe they'll taste good together. I think that is it's a cute sounding idea, but it doesn't really make that much sense. I think that obviously, if things grow up in a certain area, maybe they have certain compounds in them in common, so that could taste good. But I think it's just as likely that searching elsewhere, you'll find other things that taste good. It's just harder to do that. It's not that things that are all grown in the same area are objectively the only things that will taste good or the best things to taste good together. The other thing that happens is that when people do that, this is my Zandy cooking rant moment. So let's just put this entire conversation about the Parley aside for like 1 second, and let me proselytize about how this is silly. It's one of those correlation, not causation things where it's like, okay, if you get ingredients that are all from the same place, what you did is you got local, very well grown, cared for ingredients. It's not that those ingredients taste better with your food. It's that they're just better ingredients. Like, they're just higher quality ingredients. Like, I lived in Vermont a couple of years ago, and, a year ago, but anyway, for a couple of years. And people would always say this. They would say, oh, it's like all Vermont grown food. And it's like, no, it's just that it didn't have to travel as far. It's local. It's fresher. Like, it's not, it isn't better. It's just, I mean, the other food that traveled here is worse because it has existed for longer. It may originally have been better. The only reason this food is any better. Anyway, being in Vermont, it was a lot of people who really bought into the cuteness of that ideology. And the thing that would constantly irritate me was this idea that they didn't really care about quality. It was like if the thing was local, they would just sort of sidestep quality. And ironically, I felt that a lot of local products in Vermont specifically that I experienced, maybe I had bad experiences, but I did live there for a few years, were kind of bad compared to like in Massachusetts. People don't have such a, I'm just going to say, fetish for local things. And I feel like when I have something local in Massachusetts, which is a little bit less common, it's not uncommon, but there's more of a contrast. We have a few major cities here, the thing is pretty noticeably better than something else because it is actually meaningfully local compared to the other things I would be having, which are like being shipped to Boston from overseas or wherever, and they've spent some time traveling. They're not bad or anything. They're just less good than they originally were because they traveled a long way. Anyway, rant end. What spices are we putting on the thing? Let's go double check again. Just reminding everybody what we're actually talking about, supposedly. Yeah, and definitely neurodes. And then we could get it to scroll down. But choosing from these, I think you want something with some texture. We're making chutney. Chitinous husks, that seems like a pretty decent bet. And then plastids, I don't know, maybe it could give some texture to the sauce. I'm thinking maybe some cornstarch, grind them up and get a nice slurry, add that to the sauce to thicken it right up. Pretty nice, right? Finally, of course, we need to use our nanospore atomizer to spritz the tower steak with the appropriate chemicals to entice the taste buds of our dear Konzu. Because, of course, we only want the best for such an honorable member of the Ostron community who gives us such generous gifts as 1 Moprico fruit. As a reward for literally killing people, we get 1 Moprico fruit.